Welcome to Barbara's Bulletin, the podcast that brings you the latest news and updates from around the world. I'm your host, Barbara, and I'm thrilled to have you joining me today. As we dive into the top stories of the day, we're taking a close look at the ongoing tensions between Russia and Western countries. In a recent development, France has accused Russian military intelligence of hacking into President Emmanuel Macron's campaign in 2017, as well as staging other cyberattacks against French organizations, including one involved in the Paris Olympics. The Russian government has strongly denied these allegations, calling them unfounded accusations and dismissing any suggestion that they were behind the hacking. This comes amidst a backdrop of rising tensions between Russia and France, particularly since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. It's worth noting that Western countries have long accused Russian intelligence of interfering in their political systems and staging cyberattacks, but Russia has consistently denied these claims. The situation remains complex, with both sides presenting different narratives and interpretations of events. In related news, we're also seeing reports that McDonald's and Coca-Cola have ruled out returning to the Russian market, citing ongoing sanctions and legal barriers. This development highlights the economic implications of the tensions between Russia and Western countries. As we continue to follow these stories, it's essential to approach them with a critical and nuanced perspective, recognizing the complexities and multifaceted nature of international relations. We'll be keeping a close eye on these developments and bringing you updates as more information becomes available. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. I'm your host, Barbara, and we're glad you're joining us again for this middle segment of our show. Today, we're taking a closer look at two significant stories coming out of Eastern Europe. First, let's head to Russia, where the country's top communist has made a notable demand. Gennady Zyuganov, the leader of the Communist Party, is calling for the city of Volgograd to be renamed Stalingrad once again. This move is seen as an effort to revisit the country's Soviet past and honor the legacy of Joseph Stalin. The proposal has sparked a mix of reactions from Russians, with some welcoming the idea and others expressing concern about the implications of such a change. To give you a better understanding of this story, let me provide some context. Volgograd was indeed previously known as Stalingrad, but it was renamed in 1961 as part of Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev's efforts to de-Stalinize the country. The city is famous for being the site of one of the bloodiest battles in World War II, where Soviet forces defeated the German army. Now let's switch gears and head to Belarus, where a U.S. national has been released from prison after being jailed amid an opposition crackdown. Yuras Tsyankovich, a 47-year-old naturalized U.S. citizen, was arrested in April 2021 for allegedly trying to seize power from President Alexander Lukashenko. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison, but has now been freed at the request of the United States. This development is significant, given the tense relations between Belarus and the West. The release of Zyuganov may be seen as a gesture of goodwill by the Belarusian government, but it's also important to note that there are still over 1,200 political prisoners behind bars in Belarusian jails. As we continue to follow these stories, it's essential to remember the complexities of international relations and the diverse perspectives at play. We'll keep a close eye on these developments and provide you with updates as more information becomes available. That's all for this segment of Barbara's Bulletin. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, I want to bring your attention to a developing story that highlights the complexities of the ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza. The situation is multifaceted, with various perspectives and concerns being raised by different groups. Recently, a significant number of Israeli Air Force reservists and retirees, over 1,000 open letter urging their government to reconsider its approach to the conflict. They expressed concern that the continuation of the war may not achieve its declared goals and could potentially put the lives of hostages at greater risk. This sentiment has been echoed by other branches of the military, with more than 12,000 signatures collected from various units. It's worth noting that this movement is not solely driven by political motivations, but also by a sense of national responsibility and concern for the well-being of both Israeli citizens and Palestinians affected by the conflict. The reservists' reluctance to serve has reached a point where attendance rates have reportedly dropped to as low as 50–60%, posing a significant challenge for Israel's military strategy, which heavily relies on reserve forces. Meanwhile, public opinion in Israel seems to be shifting, with recent polls indicating widespread support for a new ceasefire and hostage release deal. Protesters in Tel Aviv have been vocal about their demands, displaying images of both Israeli hostages and Palestinian children killed during the war, sparking a brief but intense debate over the limits of free speech and the right to protest. Prime Minister Netanyahu has maintained his stance on the need to defeat Hamas through military pressure as the only viable means to secure the release of hostages. However, critics argue that this approach may not yield the desired outcomes and could lead to further escalation and humanitarian crises. As we conclude today's segment, it's essential to recognize the deep-seated complexities and emotional toll of this conflict on all parties involved. The path forward will undoubtedly require careful consideration, diplomacy, and a commitment to finding solutions that prioritize human life and dignity. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged.